I remember Yahweh's Sabbath, set apart the Sabbath. Okay, I want to talk about husbands and wives, mostly husbands, but let's start off by reading Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25. Ephesians 5:25. Husbands, love your wives, even as Messiah also loved the church and gave himself for it, that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, that he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. So ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loves his wife loves himself. For no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, even as the Lord the church. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. This is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Messiah in the church. Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife even as himself, and the wife see that she reverence her husband. The believer's home should be like a symphony, harmonious. And the only way that is possible is by doing it Yahweh's way, each playing our own part. In the lifetime of some of the people in this room, the divorce rate was as low as 1 in 7. By the 60s, it was 1 in 4. It wasn't long before it was 1 in 2. And then you have America today, where divorces far outnumber marriages every year. What starts out as the ideal turns into an ordeal, and then somebody is looking for a new deal. Too bad, because marriage is supposed to be a taste of heaven on earth. The closest thing to paradise this world can know. It's a picture of our relationship with Yeshua. Someone once said, when a believer's home is done right, angels would feel at home in it. The devil knows that if he can hurt the home, he can hurt us everywhere. From home to church to nation to world. And according to Yahweh, it all begins with dad. No wonder the devil levels his artillery until the man of the house is dead in his sights. The Bible not only tells us what to do and how to do it and where to get the power to do it, but then it draws us a picture so we can't miss the meaning message. Perhaps Yahweh knew men would be slower than women and infinitely hard-headed. In this picture we have Yeshua and his bride, the church. Whatever Yeshua is to the church is what we men are to be to our wives. What Yeshua gave for the church, I'm supposed to give to my wife. And so, men, we owe our wives godly leadership. Yeshua is the leader of the church, and men ought to lead their wives in the right way. Leadership is not dictatorship. That's what we see now in the Middle East. It is not coercion. Yeshua doesn't make the church obey him. I will serve thee because I love thee. Leadership is not domination. Some guys try to use their Bibles to beat their wives into submission. That's not cool. You cannot subdue anyone into submission, because by definition, submission is voluntary. Submission of a woman is to be in response to loving leadership on the part of the husband. I get a kick out of these guys who say headship of the home is their Bible right. Actually, it's something to do. It's more earned like respect. Traffic rights. Everybody knows traffic rights. We all have our rights on the road. But if you force the issue, it might mean death. The quick and the dead. On a tombstone, here lies the body of Jerry Ray, who refused to give up his right away. He was right, dead right, as he traveled along, but just as dead as if he was wrong. If you demand submission, you won't have it. And you might get yourself killed. We have believing men today trying to be the boss of their home instead of a loving leader of their home. Ephesians 5:23 says, "For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Messiah is the head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body." Head does not mean boss. Gordon Silveridge built a huge department stores in England by being a leader and not a boss. He said a boss drives men, a leader coaches them. The boss depends upon authority, the leader goodwill. The boss inspires fear, the leader enthusiasm. The boss says I, the leader says we. The boss fixes blame for breakdowns and the leader fixes breakdowns. The boss knows how it's done. The leader shows how it's done. The boss says go. The leader says let's go. It's the difference between cornering someone, and getting them into your corner. In a harmonious home, Dad is to be the leader of the band, and he is responsible for all. And if someone is out of step, it's likely his fault. Not always, but most often, problems are caused by the man not providing the right leadership in the home. Eve may have sinned, but Yahweh looked for Adam. The main problem in our homes today isn't insubmissive wives, but husbands with warped views on leadership or no leadership at all. Remember how Yeshua settled the disciples' dispute over who is most important? By putting on an apron, bending over, and washing their stinking feet. Headship isn't a chain of command. It's a chain of responsibility and service. Leadership isn't having others cater to your needs, but rather meeting the needs of other people. Some of us need to go home and wash our feet figuratively, or maybe even literally. We do so by apologizing, by learning, by improving, and by leading in love. It shouldn't be the wives leading the family to church, though we can be thankful for those who do out of necessity. It should be the man, the leader of the band. Yahweh helps the man whose wife has to pray over the meal or has to pray with the kids at bedtime or it won't happen, or has to bring up spiritual topics or remind about quiet time, or it will never take place. You are to be the spiritual leader of your home. Godly leadership. And then we have love. Ephesians 5:25, husbands, love your wives, even as Messiah also loved the church and gave himself for it. And 5:28 says, so ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loves his wife loves himself. In Ephesians 5:33, nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife even as himself, and the wife see that she reverence her husband. If we are to love our wives the same way Yeshua loved the church, what kind of love is that? Sacrificial love. Ephesians 5:25, husband, love your wives, even as Messiah also loved the church and gave himself for it. He gave himself for it. Yeshua died for the church. We should be willing to die for our wives. How do you know if you are willing to die for her? Are you living for her? Are you dying to yourself? Now let's be honest. We're pretty selfish. We're like a tick on a dog. We're only in it for what we can get out of it. The problem in marriage is that there are 2 ticks and no dog. Verse 25 means there should be nothing so precious to us that we wouldn't give it up for our wives. Well, I've worked hard all week, and it's my right to do what I want with my time off. Grow up. That sounds like a spoiled schoolboy. We have sanctifying love. Ephesians 5:26, that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, that he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. It's an elevating love. My wife is a radiant believer, the best I've ever met. And I have the assignment from Yahweh to help her to be even better. That's a tall order. She's supposed to be a better believer because she married me. I must never lead her into anything impure or unholy. Remember, love lifts you up, never drags you down. If people get into a relationship that drags them down, that isn't love. That's not of Yahweh. Drop them like a hard rock. Then we have secure love. Ephesians 5:28, so ought men to love their wives as their own bodies, that he loves his wife, loves himself. Verse 30 says, for we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. Provide her protection and security. This is physical protection for the weaker vessel. This is emotional protection. We are to be her helpmeet in weak areas, and yet some guys seem to get a kick out of aggravating and taking advantage of their wife's emotional state. I remind you that according to the Bible, when your wife hurts, you are supposed to hurt. One flesh. That's the kind of Savior we serve. He is touched with the feelings of our infirmities. Ephesians 5:29, for no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, even as the Lord of the church. Cherish. To warm someone when they are cold. Nourish. To feed. See to it that her needs are met, and when you provide her financial security as well as physical and emotional security, in some strange way, you will also be better for it. Because you are one flesh. We have leadership, love. We have loyalty. Ephesians 5:31, for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother and shall be joined unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. Leave speaks of the priority of marriage. Joined, welded, speaks of the preeminence of marriage. One flesh speaks of the purpose of marriage. It's all summed up by one word, loyalty. Contrary to popular opinion, the highest relationship on earth is not the mother-child, but husband and wife. Look at most any divorce and you see the opposite occurring. Your child has your unconditional love and loyalty as they should, and your spouse also should. We're not trying to cry over spilled milk or unscrambled eggs. This isn't guilt for the divorce. This is biblical truth protection for the future. But I owe it to myself to be happy. No. You owe it to Yahweh to be holy, to keep your vows. All couples have problems, but not all have the commitment to work through it. But we're no longer in love. It's not love which sustains commitment, but commitment which sustains love. Now here's some practical ideas for men. Learn to control your anger. Some blow up. One lady said her husband was like a volcano and would spew all over her, and it upset her so much that she was losing weight. Her friends asked if she was going to confront him about it, and she said, yes, as soon as I get down to 120. Some clam up and refuse to talk, but those usually end up blowing up. We must learn to look up and open up and express our anger rationally and let Yahweh help us through it. Direct anger towards the problem, not the closest person to vent on. We hurt those we love the most. But the more we love them, the less we should hurt them. Control your tongue. Women hear differently because they feel things deeply. A man can say, are you going to eat all that? And what did she hear? What might he have meant? A dating couple strolled along down a country road. You could hear the crickets and also a practicing church choir. The girl asked, how do they make such lovely music? And he replies, by rubbing their legs together. We speak different languages. We hear things differently. We must learn to speak one another's language. Be careful what you say and how you say it. Also, when you say it. Pick your time to talk. Finally, be careful if you even ought to say it. Some guys pride themselves on saying whatever they are thinking, and unloading the truck is not a good idea, especially when it's full of a load of something unpleasant. Leadership, love, loyalty. Ephesians 5:22 to verse 24, how the wife should treat her husband. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto the wife, and they two shall be one flesh. Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Messiah is the head of the church. And he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Messiah, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. How the husband should treat his wife. He should love her above everything and anything in the world. He should praise her and not criticize her. He should pay attention to her and not let her know that she is special. First, let us understand Yahweh's design of marriage in Genesis 18, chapter 2, verse 18. Yahweh Elohim said, it is not good for the man to be alone. I will make him a helpmeet for him. And out of the ground Yahweh Elohim formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air, and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. Whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. Adam gave names to all cattle, and to the fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helpmeet for him. And Yahweh Elohim caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam. And he slept, and he took one of his ribs, and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And the rib which Yahweh Elohim had taken from man made he a woman, and brought her unto the man. Adam said, This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And they were both naked, and the man and his wife were not ashamed. Yahweh planned woman's creation. The plan for woman's creation was not just an afterthought. It was not an inferior plan. It was not of less importance. And it was not given less attention and thought than the creation of man. On the contrary, the very opposite was true. This passage shows that the great attention and thought were given to the creation of a woman. The plan for woman's creation was worked out in great detail. First, she was created for companionship. Genesis 2:18, and Yahweh Elohim said, Yahweh made Eve as a helpmeet, that is, a suitable helper and companion. Woman was the only thing Yahweh made not out of dirt. She was special. A man by the name of C.H. Spurgeon said, Woman was not taken out of man's head to be lorded over him, or from his feet to be trampled on by him, but from his side to be equal with him, from under his arm to be protected by him, from near his heart to be loved by him. Companion, one who shares in what another is doing. Man needs woman. Second, she was created for love. There are three kinds of love. Phileo is friendships. Eros is sex. Agape is genuine love, the very love of Yahweh himself. I don't want a wife to love me more than she loves Yahweh. Now let me share with you how a wife should treat her husband. The wife should reverence or respect her husband. Ephesians 5 makes it very clear that men have a need for respect and reverence, and the women have a need for love. 5:33, Ephesians 5:33, Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife even as himself, and the wife see that she reverence her husband. The Amplified Bible says about this verse, let the wife see that she respects and reverences her husband, and she notices him, honors him, prefers him, and esteems him exceedingly. If she respects him as she should, she shows him her love. The man has two major responsibilities, lover and leader. The wife should tell her husband, I believe in you. I thank you for loving me and the children the way you do. Husbands, we got to earn that kind of reverence and respect. Genesis 3:16, Yahweh establishes the man as the leader. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow in thy conception, and in sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. He didn't do it to put the woman down, but Yahweh knew if there was not a final authority, there would be confusion. Someone has to make the final decision. The man is not to dominate or lord over his wife. Now let me explain something. Submission is not slavery. It is simply conforming to Yahweh's order. Husbands are to give leadership, and leadership without love is dictatorship. Leadership does not mean the man is superior or the wife inferior. Leadership does not mean that the husband makes all the decisions. Leadership does not mean that the husband is always right and the wife should look to him instead of Yahweh. Leadership is not something that should be demanded. Leadership is responsible to Yahweh for his home, responsible for all decisions, even if he turns it over to his wife. Even if a man is successful in business, in his leadership, and does not feel he is the leader of the home, he feels like a failure. A wife should praise her husband for being a good leader. When a man feels he is the leader, he will stop resenting his wife and fighting her, and will free him to be more considerate of her and her needs. He will become more supportive of her, and then she will blossom as a person. Let me give you some ways that wives can challenge the husband's leadership. First, belittle him, criticize him, to indicate that you don't believe in him. When are you going to grow up? You dummy, you can't do anything. Second, dominate your husband, especially the quiet type. Third, punish your husband when you don't get your own way. Pouting, silent treatment, cut them off from the bedroom. Fourth, ignore what they ask you to do. Their words mean nothing. Now let me give you some ways to encourage your husband. Follow his leadership. Needs to be leaderable. You enjoy following him. You say, lead me, and I'm just dying to follow you. Second, have confidence in them. Find ways to build up their self-esteem. And to let them know that you believe in them. Need to express confidence in their ability and in their decisions, and needs to admire them. Admiration is respect verbalized. It is awesome to be married to you. You are my man, she says. And he says, you are my woman. Third, let your husband make major decisions. You can give advice, but you need to trust him with the final decision. And fourth, give room for freedom to fail. We all make mistakes. When a wife holds past mistakes over his head, he'll be fearful of making future decisions. They need to know they can fail and still have respect. Fifth, have good communication. Let him know what your needs are. Be careful of the idea of not telling him your needs and expecting him to know. Encourage him to be a provider. 1 Timothy 5:8, but if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he has denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. Yahweh doesn't smile on laziness. A wife needs to be financially secure. Husbands have a lot of pressure at work and does not need pressure at home. Some men can't work and need special love and attention. But when a man comes home, the last thing he needs and wants is pressure from his wife. If he comes home to a wife who is tense and upset with a long list of complaints and things for him to do, where he is to go and relax, where is he going to go and relax and unwind? Wives need to understand the pressure of the husband. You need to appreciate their hard work. Some work hard to show their love. Encourage their ambition. Don't hold them back. And yet, don't let them be lazy. Be content with what they make. Philippians 4, verse 11. Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. Spend money wisely, and you will learn how to be content. Let him know your needs, that you need him. Don't ever tell him, I can get along without you. Enjoy them home. A place where he loves to be. Make home enjoyable for him so he can't wait to get home. Nobody loves you at work. Encourage him as a protector. The wife should never worry about anything. The husband should protect physically, protect emotionally, and protect spiritually. Quality time to be alone with Yahweh by himself. Your husband needs time alone with Yahweh, for he's got a lot to talk to him about. So don't fuss at him if he stays in prayer or reads a lot of his Bible. He needs that time. So this is how a wife should treat her husband. Reverence and respect him. Encourage him to be a provider. Encourage him as protector. And give him quality time alone with Yahweh by himself. Men are to love their wives as they love themselves. And Yahweh bless you with a loving spouse.